Animation isn't just for kids. Some Japanese films push boundaries so far that entire governments ban them outright. From circus horrors to psychic violence, these 13 films were deemed too dangerous for the world to see. Which ones made directors flee their own country? 1. Midori, The Girl in the Freak Show. This 1992 nightmare is Japan's most banned anime film, and even the Japanese government wanted it destroyed. Director Hiroshi Harada spent 5 years hand-animating this solo project about an orphaned girl named Midori who gets trapped in a horrifying circus troupe. What makes this film legendary isn't just the gore, but what happens to a child character. After her mother dies, 14-year-old Midori gets lured to a traveling circus where performers abuse and torment her in ways that left viewers traumatized. Studio after studio refused to touch this project, forcing Harada to animate every single frame himself. He mortgaged his house, sold everything he owned, and nearly destroyed his marriage, creating what critics called the most disturbing animated film ever made. The film was banned in Japan immediately after its 1992 release. Copies were confiscated, theaters refused to screen it, and many people actually destroyed their own tapes in disgust. Germany banned it completely. South Korea outlawed it for decades. Even distributors who specialized in extreme content wouldn't touch it. Original VHS copies became legendary collector's items worth thousands of dollars. The uncut masters were only released from government confiscation in 2013, over 20 years later. Critics who saw it described feeling genuinely disturbed for weeks afterward. This isn't exploitation for shock value. This is psychological horror that breaks unwritten rules about what animation should never show. 2. Uratsuki Doji, Legend of the Overfiend. Toshio Maeda created the anime that launched 1,000 controversies and basically invented an entire disturbing subgenre. This 1987 film follows demons, humans, and otherworldly creatures in a world where violence and intimate scenes blend into pure nightmare fuel. What started as a manga became the most infamous adult anime ever created. The story centers on Nagumo, a demon hunter searching for the Overfiend, a being prophesied to unite 3 worlds. But this isn't your typical hero's journey. The film features tentacle creatures, graphic transformations, and imagery so extreme that most countries refuse to allow uncut versions anywhere near their borders. Maeda's original vision was even more intense than what made it to screen. Britain's BBFC refused to classify it, essentially banning the film outright. Australia labeled it Refuse Classification. Multiple European countries either banned it completely or demanded cuts so severe they made the film unwatchable. Even in Japan, many theaters wouldn't screen it. The controversy made it a massive underground hit, spawning multiple sequels and imitators. Critics called it the most notorious anime ever made. Maeda himself said he never expected the worldwide freakout, but the forbidden nature made it even more sought after. Adult film distributors built entire business models around titles like this one. Today, finding an uncut version still requires serious hunting. 3. Violence. Jack, Evil Town, Go Nagai's post-apocalyptic demon unleashed hell on screen in ways that made even horror fans turn away. This 1988 OVA took the already extreme violence Jack manga and cranked the brutality to levels that horrified international censors. The Evil Town episode specifically became the most banned anime episode in history. Set in earthquake-devastated Tokyo, the story follows the massive demon Violence Jack as he wanders through underground settlements, where humanity has devolved into savage tribes. Evil Town features a prison riot sequence that includes cannibalism, dismemberment, and violence so realistic that multiple countries refused to air it. The British Board of Film Classification took 30 seconds of cuts and still couldn't make it acceptable for release. Countries across Europe banned the entire Violence Jack series after seeing Evil Town. Australia refused classification. Even edited versions were pulled from store shelves. The uncut Japanese version was so extreme that import copies became black market items. Manga Entertainment, known for releasing edgy content, had to remove minutes of footage before attempting distribution in the UK. Critics described it as the most brutal animated sequence ever produced. Director Ichiro Itano said he wanted to show post-apocalyptic survival with no holds barred. Violence. Jack became legendary among underground anime fans precisely because it was nearly impossible to see in its intended form. 4. Genocyber Koichi. Ohata's 1994 cyberpunk horror became the anime that even Japan temporarily banned from television. This 5-part OVA about psychic weapons and corporate conspiracies featured violence so extreme that it broke anime's unwritten rules about showing graphic harm to children. Original copies are still incredibly rare due to the initial ban. The story follows Elaine and Diana, psychic sisters whose powers get exploited by military scientists trying to create the ultimate biological weapon called Genocyber. When the sisters merge, they become an unstoppable force of psychic destruction that tears through cities, literally ripping apart anyone in their path. The first episode alone features hospital scenes, with thousands of dismembered limbs and internal organs scattered across the screen. Japan actually banned Genocyber from broadcast television after its initial release. Original VHS and Laserdisc copies became extremely rare. Collector's items were thousands. Multiple countries refused to import it at all. The series was so controversial that the manga it was based on got canceled after just 1 volume. Critics called it gratuitously violent and pure shock value. Even anime fans who loved extreme content found Genocyber difficult to watch. The ban was only recently lifted, allowing newer generations to understand why this OVA caused such a massive controversy in the first place. 5. Perfect Blue. Satoshi Kon's 1997 psychological thriller seemed tame compared to gore fests like Genocyber, but its psychological horror got it banned for entirely different reasons. This film, about a pop star's descent into madness, was too realistic, too disturbing, and too close to real-world celebrity stalking cases for comfort. Mima Kirigo retires from her idol group to pursue acting, but an obsessed fan begins stalking her while people around her start dying. As Mima loses grip on reality, the film blurs the line between fantasy and truth in ways that left viewers genuinely unsettled. Director Khan used animation techniques that made the psychological breakdown feel frighteningly real. China banned Perfect Blue for its depictions of violence and identity crisis. Several countries restricted it to adults-only screenings. The film's realistic portrayal of stalking and mental breakdown made governments uncomfortable in ways that obvious fantasy violence didn't. Critics described feeling psychologically disturbed for days after viewing it. The film's themes about celebrity culture and media manipulation hit too close to real tragedies involving idol harassment in Japan. Unlike other banned anime that shocked with gore, Perfect Blue was banned for being too psychologically accurate. Distributors struggled to market a film that was simultaneously acclaimed as a masterpiece and too disturbing for general audiences. 6. Kite. This 1998 anime pushed boundaries in ways that made Norway ban it completely, and other countries heavily censor it. Director Yasuomi Umetsu created a story about a teenage assassin that crossed lines many felt should never be approached in animation, regardless of artistic intent. Sawa is an orphaned girl trained as an assassin by corrupt police officers who exploit her in every possible way. The film mixes explosive action sequences with deeply disturbing content involving minors that made international distribution nearly impossible. Even edited versions sparked massive controversy for their implications. Norway banned Kite outright under laws prohibiting certain content involving minors. Many other countries either refused to distribute it or demanded cuts so extensive they ruined the narrative flow. In the US, heavily edited versions still cause protests. The controversial scenes were so problematic that many distributors wouldn't touch the film at all. Critics argued about whether the film was addressing serious social issues or exploiting them for shock value. The animation quality was praised, but the content overshadowed any artistic merits. Finding uncut versions became nearly impossible in most countries. The controversy followed director Umetsu for years, affecting his ability to get future projects funded. 7. Paranoia Agent. Satoshi Kon's 2004 TV series was initially banned from Japanese broadcast television and had to air on satellite channels instead. This psychological thriller about mass hysteria and social anxiety was deemed too disturbing for general audiences. even in anime-friendly Japan. The story follows a mysterious assailant called Lil Slugger, who attacks people with a golden baseball bat. As investigations progress, the line between reality and delusion dissolves, revealing uncomfortable truths about Japanese society and individual psychology. One episode featured a child attempting self-harm, which triggered immediate censorship concerns. Japan forced the series to air on satellite-only channels rather than mainstream television. In the US, Cartoon Network's Adult Swim initially banned it, then aired heavily censored versions that removed references to ending one's life and most instances of graphic content. The UK also censored the hanging scene before broadcast. Critics called it too psychologically intense for television. The series explored themes of social pressure, escapism, and mental breakdown with such unsettling accuracy that broadcasters worried about copycat behavior. Khan's realistic animation style made the psychological horror feel too authentic for comfort. The censorship was lifted years later, but many countries still require content warnings before broadcast. 8. Angel Cop. This 1989 cyberpunk thriller became notorious not just for its extreme violence, but for political content so controversial that the English dub completely rewrote major plot elements. Director Ichiro Itano created a film that offended multiple governments for reasons beyond typical anime content concerns. Set in future Japan, Special Police Officer Angel Mikawa fights communist terrorists while uncovering a conspiracy involving foreign manipulation of Japanese politics. The original Japanese version included explicit conspiracy theories targeting specific ethnic groups, while the English dub replaced these elements with generic Americans to avoid international incidents. The original Japanese version was banned in multiple countries for its political content and conspiracy theories. The English dub had to completely rewrite major plot elements to get any international distribution at all. Several European countries refused to import either version. Even heavily edited releases faced censorship for their extreme violence and political implications. The series became a cult favorite among anime fans precisely because it was so difficult to see uncut. Critics called it politically inflammatory and gratuitously violent. The controversy extended beyond typical anime censorship into actual diplomatic concerns about international relations. 9. School Days. This 2007 anime adaptation pushed romantic drama into such dark territory that it was pulled from Japanese television mid-broadcast. The final episodes were so disturbing that networks refused to air them, making this one of the few anime series banned in its home country during its original run. Makoto Ito's romantic entanglements spiral into obsession, manipulation, and ultimately violence as multiple relationships collapse into psychological horror. The series builds from typical romance tropes into genuinely disturbing territory that subverted everything viewers expected from the genre. Japanese television networks pulled the final episodes from broadcast schedules after early airings caused viewer complaints and controversy. China banned the entire series for its violent content and themes. The series was deemed too violent and psychologically disturbing for television broadcast. The final episodes only became available through DVD releases with age restrictions. Critics described the series as a deconstruction of romance anime taken too far. The controversy made it legendary among anime fans, but also demonstrated how far series could go before even Japan's relatively permissive broadcasting standards drew the line. 10. Tokyo Ghoul. While not banned everywhere, this 2014 series about flesh-eating ghouls hiding among humans got blacklisted by China for reasons that went beyond typical violence concerns. The government worried the series was encouraging dangerous real-world behavior among teenagers. Ken Kaneki becomes a half-ghoul after a near-death encounter, struggling to maintain his humanity while needing to consume human flesh to survive. The series explores themes of identity, discrimination, and survival in a world where monsters hide among normal people. China banned Tokyo Ghoul in 2017 after reports that teenagers were sewing threads into their skin and using excessive piercings to imitate characters from the series. The government cited both the graphic violence and its potential influence on self-harm behaviors. Several other countries restricted it to adult audiences only, The ban extended beyond the anime to manga, merchandise, and online content related to the series. Critics argued the bans were overreactions to isolated incidents, but governments worried about copycat behavior among impressionable viewers. Despite the controversy, Tokyo Ghoul remained one of the most popular anime series worldwide, with the forbidden nature only increasing its underground appeal. 11. XL Saga Episode 26. This 1999 comedy series seemed harmless enough until its final episode, called Going Too Far, which was so extreme that it was banned even in Japan. Director Shinichi Watanabe deliberately created an episode so outrageous that no network would air it. The series followed Excel, an agent of an organization bent on world domination, through increasingly absurd adventures that parodied every anime genre imaginable. The final episode took this concept to its logical extreme, with content deemed too violent, too long, and too offensive for any broadcast standards. Japan banned episode 26 from television broadcast, and it was only available through DVD releases with heavy age restrictions. Even the DVD release came with warnings about its content. The episode was designed specifically to be unbroadcastable, and director Watanabe succeeded beyond his wildest expectations. International distributors either skipped the episode entirely or released it with so many content warnings that it became a curiosity rather than entertainment. Critics called it an experiment in how far anime could push boundaries. The deliberately controversial episode became legendary among anime fans as the show that got itself banned on purpose. 12. High School of the Dead. This 2010 zombie apocalypse series mixed survival horror with fan service in ways that got it banned by China and heavily censored elsewhere. The combination of graphic violence and provocative content created a perfect storm of controversy. Students fight to survive a zombie outbreak, while the series focuses heavily on both zombie violence and the female characters in ways that made censors uncomfortable. The series became notorious for its gratuitous content that often overshadowed the actual plot. China banned both the anime and manga versions in 2015 as part of a larger crackdown on violent and adult content. The series was heavily censored in multiple other countries, with many scenes either cut or edited. Critics argued the series was more interested in controversy than storytelling. Despite the bans, it became enormously popular through underground distribution and streaming sites. The controversy highlighted ongoing debates about content standards and the global distribution of anime with adult themes. 13. Attack on Titan. Even this mainstream hit got banned by China as part of a larger 2015 crackdown on anime and manga deemed too violent for public consumption. The series about humanity's fight against giant humanoid monsters was one of 38 titles blacklisted by the Chinese government. Eren Yeager and his friends fight for survival in a world where enormous titans devour humans behind massive walls. The series features graphic scenes of people being eaten alive and explores themes of war, genocide, and human nature. China banned Attack on Titan, along with 37 other anime and manga titles, citing scenes of violence, terrorism, and crimes against public morality. The ban surprised many since the series was relatively mainstream compared to other controversial anime. The Chinese government worried about the series' violent content and its potential influence on young viewers. Despite being banned in China, Attack on Titan became a global phenomenon and one of the most successful anime series of all time. The ban highlighted how different countries approach anime content regulation, with some seeing threats where others see entertainment. These films didn't just push boundaries, they obliterated them completely, from directors who spent fortunes creating unmarketable art to governments desperately trying to keep them. Away from citizens, these 13 anime represent animation's wildest, most dangerous experiments. Which one do you think went too far? Or should art have no limits at all? Drop your most controversial take in the comments, because this is exactly the kind of debate that keeps these banned films alive decades later.